Well, I think, this is one of those years that you've got so many players that are actually playing really well coming into the tournament. You've had the likes of the defending champion, Corin Wilson. He's won 4 tournaments already this season. Judd Trump, I think he's won 3 behind him. You've John Higgins, who just won the Tour Championship in spectacular fashion. Mark Selby's picked up a couple of tournaments this year as well. Neil Robertson has won a couple of tournaments, and then you've got a few of the Chinese. Ding Junhui has come back to a bit of form. You've got that Wu Yize, Zhao Guodong has won a tournament. So there's lots. And then, of course, we have to mention Ronnie O'Sullivan. We don't really know. He doesn't have any form, not this season, but of course, he has lots of form at the Crucible. He's won it 7 times. He's gone for 8. We don't even know when he's going to play yet. He's such an enigma. He's going to keep everybody guessing. The press day is tomorrow. He probably won't show up for that, but I'm hoping that he will play. And you cannot discount the great Ronnie O'Sullivan either. Well, funny enough, I think I really think that this could be the year. We have a Crucible course, that the first-time winners never came back to defend it. The closest that we've got was Joe Johnson in 87 after he beat Davis in 86. And myself in 1998, we both got to the final. That was as close as anybody's got. But I really think Corin Wilson could break that Crucible course. I think the way he's playing, the confidence of him, the way he's carried the mantle of the world champion as well as an ambassador. I think he's done really well this year. Won 4 tournaments, played beautifully. Yes, he didn't perform too well at the Tour Championship, but I wouldn't sort of worry about that too much. I just think his form overall this season has been brilliant, and I think he's gonna be very, very difficult to stop. I think it's one of them, without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah, and I reeled off a lot of those names. I forgot to mention Mark Williams as well. I know he's been suffering. He's got contact lenses. He's been suffering with his eyes lately, but he's one player that you can't discount either. Even Ding Junhui, he's in that little sort of quarter with Luca Brissell, Judd Trump, and Sean Murphy. People like that. You could throw John Higgins. They're not talked about very much, but you just never know if they get on a little run. But there's just so many players who are playing really well this year. And Barry Hawkins, how well he played at the Tour Championship as well. So, these are sort of players that if they get a little run, bit of confidence, what happened back in 1997 when Ken Doherty tried to win the World Championship. He was like 33 or 40 to 1 at one stage, going into the tournament. I had no form whatsoever. I lost to Steve Davis in the Masters in Wembley 6-1. He beat me 6-1 at the Irish Masters as well the month before, and Michael Judge beat me 5-1 in the British Open about a week before the World Championship. So I had no form whatsoever. So you can never discount one of those runners coming from the back of the field and causing a few upsets, But watch out for Xiao Xingtong and Wu Yize. They'd be my outside tips. I think so, yeah. I would say Judd Trump is actually not in a bad half, although he may run into Sean Murphy, the Masters champion, in the last 16. But the other 2 seeds in that quarter of the draw are Ding Junhui and Luca Brissell. So you would have to fancy if Judd Trump plays his best over 25 frames. Yes, I think Murphy will be a test. But I think the way he's been playing, he's bound to have... I know he hasn't really played exceptionally well in the Crucible. Yes, he's won it once. He lost in the final to O'Sullivan. He lost in the final to Higgins. But it's not a place that I think he has played his best snooker, So, but I think this could be that a year that he can go a long way. And it could be, once again, he's played Corin Wilson in the final of, I think, 3 events this season. Corin Wilson has won all 3. But this could be one where, the top 2 seeds actually get to the final. Well, something, it's one of the worst draws for those 2 players, but it's one of the best draws for the rest of us, Because of the history between the two players. The barge gate at the World Championship where they shoulder charged each other walking by. It is quite tight, at the Crucible. But there was a little bit of argy-bargy between them, and they threw the little shoulder in, And of course, there was a bit of a spat between them in the Masters final a couple of years ago as well. So there's a bit of history between the two. It was probably the worst draw. I was in the press conference when Eddie Carter came in, and he was asked about the possibility of drawing Ronnie O'Sullivan in the first round, and he just said very quickly, no comment. So that the sort of the intensity between the two has not gone away. And that makes it even more spicier. So I think it's a great draw for the rest of us. And that quarter, Saudi's in that quarter as well. So it's a very, very tough quarter for Ronnie O'Sullivan. If he comes through it, he is probably due to meet the likes of maybe Corin Wilson or Neil Robertson or Mark Allen in maybe a semi-final maybe, So, but it's a tasty draw. Well, it's one of those things that he's either going to really want to play and turn up for that match, or that he just doesn't fancy it, One of the stories that he came to the Welsh Open, travelled all the way up 5 hours, up from his home in Essex to play the next day at 10 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock in the morning, got up for breakfast and just didn't feel like playing, and then drove all the way back. So, he's obviously still suffering from anxiety and sort of his own issues. His mental health issues have been well documented. I hope he's okay, for his own sake. And I hope he does play, because he brings an incredible electricity to the tournament. A great buzz, not only with us sort of pundits and other players, but also the fans, of course, as well, which are the most important people. And, there's always a great excitement. There's a great sort of anticipation when Ronnie O'Sullivan is in the tournament. So for the sake of the tournament, and I think for himself as well, and for the rest of us, I hope he does play, Without a shadow of a doubt, he's an inspirational player. He thrives off sort of matches like that, they can really sort of inspire him, and I think a match like that would get the juices going straight away. It's a tough match for him, because he hasn't played for about 5 months, competitively. And that brings its own rustiness, no matter how good you are, no matter how talented you are, and no matter how much you might be practicing, behind the scenes or whatever, even with other players. The test is when you get out on that table, in front of the cameras, in front of the crowds. So he may be a little bit rusty. But then again, when you go back to one of the greatest feats that I think our game has ever seen, where he took the whole year off, he came back to the World Championship and ended up winning it. That was just unbelievable, and I think if anybody could do it, it'd certainly be Ronnie O'Sullivan, and it would, definitely get the juices flowing. Well, there's a few of them in there, and a couple of them would be Chinese. Well, one is Zhao Xintong, who played, he won 4 matches. He's technically still an amateur because he doesn't take up his professional card until the new season in June. So he's qualified as an amateur and played, I think he scored 12 centuries in the qualifiers. He's playing Jack Jones in the first match. The winner of that will play Corin Wilson, who plays Lee Pai Fan, who won the Scottish Open this year. So if Corin Wilson comes through, Zhao Xintong come through those first couple of matches, those first matches, they will play each other in the last 16. He will be a good test for Corin Wilson. He would be a dark horse for me. Wu Yize, who beat Matthew Stevens 10-9 last night. He's another player who's had a wonderful season, lost in the final of that Scottish Open. I think he lost in the final to in another tournament as well. So he's had a wonderful season, playing beautifully. He could be a dark horse. Yeah, well, I mean, if it does move from the Crucible, which I hope it doesn't, I love the Crucible. It's one of the most amazing places as a snooker player to play in. When you walk down those steps into that crowd, it's like almost like you're a gladiator going into the Colosseum, for want of a better sort of analogy. There's no feeling like it, you know. And yes, there's only 950 people in there. The facilities around the Crucible aren't great. It's quite compact, you know. There's no sort of real extensive sort of corporate facilities, you know. So they can only sort of make so much money. But however, for me, that should sell the snooker to around the world. You know, that is the sort of holy grail, and people love, and they'll come from all over the world just to come because it's in the Crucible. So that's one of the reasons, and everything that goes with it. You know, the history and nostalgia and everything. You cannot buy that. You have to create it. So that's one of the reasons why I hope it never moves. If it did move, yeah, there could be other cities like, you know, Liverpool, Newcastle, Birmingham. I wouldn't like to see it go to London because of maybe the Masters. However, City Hall in Sheffield is a big enough place, which is only like about 200 or 300 yards from the Crucible. It's a venue that they put on concerts there. They put on like comedy shows, stuff like that. It could hold possibly a couple of thousand people. It would stay in the city of Sheffield, which would be great. And they would get a lot more people in, but would it have the same atmosphere? Would it have the same intensity? Would it have the same sort of heat as the Crucible that gives us, you know what I mean? I'm not quite sure, you know what I mean? But I just hope it doesn't move from Sheffield. They've signed a contract until 2027, but BBC have signed a contract until 2032. So it won't move outside of the UK. It will stay in the UK somewhere. Where, we do not know. We'll have to wait and see. Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, yeah. Absolutely. I don't think it will. I don't think it will go to Saudi. I think Saudi have put a lot of money into snooker. There's no doubt about that. But they've got their own big tournament where they take all 128 players. And, of course, they've got the invitational event, the 167. They're quite successful. And they can grow and grow and grow and get bigger and bigger and bigger. I don't think it will go to China because China have their own events, and I think it will stay in the UK without a shadow of a doubt. I don't think it's going to go anywhere, but where after 2027, it's still up in the air. They're still negotiating. I was only talking to a counsellor here yesterday from City Hall, and they're adamant that they want to keep it in Sheffield, but maybe they have to come up with the extra funds, you know, to support snooker, to keep it here, and make sure that it doesn't go away, or find new sponsors that will, you know, make up the revenue, you know, that the extra ticket sales will sort of bring in. So that's what I'm hoping will happen, you know, and that it stays here. Well, it was quite incredible. You know, I never understood, or I wasn't aware of the attention and the build-up, you know, the snowball effect that I had on the country, you know. And it was only when I came back home with the cup that I realised the impact I had. I mean, to come back to Dublin Airport, you know, for a big crowd there waiting for me, a big press conference, and then an open top bus through the city centre, you know, with cars stopping, beeping horns, flags, you know, people hanging out of office block windows with "Welcome Home, Champ," the Irish flag. And then the big sort of reception in the Mansion House in Dawson Street, you know, hundreds and hundreds of people outside. And then, but the top it off was the chief superintendent from Harcourt Street said, "Can I tell you a funny story?" He says, "You know, when you were playing on Monday night, you know," he said, "we hadn't had one phone call into the Central Police Station for 3 hours. Now, normally," he said, "we have a phone call every 5 minutes." And he said, our girls on the switchboard, after about 20 minutes, started to panic a little bit and rang the main telecom switchboard and said, "Is there something wrong with our phones? Because we haven't had a phone call now for about 20 minutes. And the superintendent said, the girl on the other end of the line said, "He's not watching the bleeding snooker." She said, "The whole country is watching the snooker." And he says, "Doherty," he says, "you stop crime in the city for 3 hours." He says, "You should be on television more often." He says, "You make my job a hell of a lot easier," you know. So that was the impact, you know, and it was the, you know, everywhere I went in you know, in Ireland, you know, just the people where they were, you know, that the whole country stopped still. And it was the first time that RTE had bought the rights. It was only for the final session on that bank holiday Monday. So the whole country could see it, because even parts of Ireland might not have had BBC or the aerial to see, you know, down in the provinces and out in the country where the BBC signal may have not, believe it or not, back in 1997, you know. And so the whole country saw it, and the whole country came to a standstill, and And I was just grateful, you know, and it was just wonderful, you know, going out on Lansdowne Road, going out in Croke Park with the cup, going out in Old Trafford, and going out into the middle of Celtic Park as well. Those memories and days that you just can't replicate, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful feeling. It was like all your dreams and birthdays came together for that moment, and that for a whole year. You know what I mean? And I never got sick of taking the cup. They used to say, Doherty, if there was an opening of an envelope, you'd be there with the cup. You know, and I was, and I didn't care because I absolutely loved it. You know.